This is a 1-row repeat worked on any number of stitches. For my sample, I'm using DK weight yarn and US size 6 needles, and I cast on 19 stitches. Now this has a setup row before we get into the stitch pattern repeat. So we're going to be starting this with the cast on so I can show you the setup row. So I just cast on my 19 stitches using the long tail cast on. Now for the setup row, start by knitting the first stitch, and then for the rest of the setup row you're going to knit each stitch and wrap the yarn twice. So once, twice, and then off the needle. And that's all you have to do for the rest of the setup row. You knit each stitch and wrap the yarn twice. So after your setup row is complete, this is what you'll have. All of your stitches have 2 loops, except for the last stitch on the needle. So for the next row, and this is the row that you will be repeating for the pattern, you're going to start by just knitting the first loop of your first stitch. You're going to leave the second loop on the left needle. So you just knit the first loop as a regular knit stitch. Okay, so then you have that second loop, and then if you take a look at your next stitch, you're only going to knit this first loop. So the first loop of the next stitch, knit together with the second loop from the previous stitch, and you're going to wrap twice. Okay, so you've left your second loop on the needle, and you're going to knit that together with the first loop of the next stitch. And wrap the yarn twice. Okay, so you're always going to have your second loop or yarn over on the left needle, and you're always going to work that second loop with the first loop from the next stitch, and wrap the yarn twice. Okay, and then that is what you have now on your needle. And so if you look again, you can see that all of your stitches have 2 loops except for the last one. And so you're just going to continue working in that manner. You're going to knit the first stitch as just a regular knit stitch, and then you should have your second loop still on the left needle, and you're going to knit that together with the first loop from the next stitch and wrap the yarn twice. And before you work into your next stitch or that first loop, you want to make sure that your stitches aren't twisted up. So for instance, if I can just pull this one over here. So maybe I don't know if you can see this. If your next stitch on the left needle looks something like that, if you turn it over, you can see that it's crossed. You don't want that. You want to make sure that your loops are in the right order. So they should look like that. Otherwise your stitch is not going to look right. So you just want to make sure that you're knitting the correct loop from the next stitch. And then also, I wanted to mention, if you accidentally slip that second loop off of the left needle, it didn't go anywhere, it's right here. All you have to do is take your left needle and pick that loop right back up and put it onto the left needle. So you're ready to continue knitting. So let me just show you again. Whoops, there goes that second loop. Take your left needle, pick that right back up, and then you can continue knitting. And you just repeat that one row for the pattern. So before you can bind off, you need to decrease your stitches back to the starting count. So for me that was 19. So all you're going to do is just knit the first stitch. And now from here on out we're going to knit 2 together. And you're only going to wrap once, a normal knit 2 together. You've decreased your stitches. You should have the same number of stitches that you started with, and then you are ready to bind off.